Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside me today. Today I want to talk about setting up a bow from start to finish. It is going to be a lengthier video. I will put all the time tags down in the description below and probably even chunk this video into a bunch of smaller videos that will get posted on the channel. So if you're just interested in those specific ones, I will also put the link to the playlist to all of these videos down in the description as well. So all the things that I'm going to be doing today are predominantly without a bow press, and if your bow manufacturer allows it, you can get away with a portable bow press like the Bowmaster. And the Bowmaster and all the other things that I'm going to be talking about are going to be linked down in the description below if you're interested in purchasing these smaller tools that can help you set up not only in Athens but any other manufacturer. The Easton T-Square, super invaluable to help finding out your knocking point and your D-loop position, as well as can help out with your P-pipe later. I have a set of Viper D-loop pliers, which aren't super necessary. They are a little expensive, but they do make D-loop installation significantly easier, and if you plan on working on bows in the future, they're a really nice addition to have. Also, having a simple set of the Pine Ridge, the yellow, the Archer's Allen keys. These will do any different type set screws that are on your releases, as well as your sights and most of the stuff on your bow. And this Athens does require a torque set, so I do have a torque set for my cam modules. Also, a set of plier multi-tool. I'm a big fan of the Gerber stuff. I forget what the particular name of this is. I think it's the Gerber Drive. It has the pliers that come out of the center, so that's really nice. Also has a nice sharp knife. That's pretty much all you need to do about 90% of the stuff that you need to do at home. I'm going to try to show as many close-up second angle examples here with my second angle camera, so that way you can really get a close-up feel for what's going on here, as well as keep the wide angle so you can kind of get the overall feel of what I'm doing with the bow. So first things first, you pull the bow out of the box and you want to get it set to your draw length. So you want to lay the bow down, obviously, and if you have a rotating cam module already on your bow, this gets really simple very quickly because you're able to at least get the ballpark adjustment that you need for your cam system. So here, this Athens Vista 35 has this rotating cam module, and also, of course, here at the end, it has this adjustable let-off stop. So I can not only set it to 90, I also have the ability to set it to 85 and 80% let-off. Currently, I have it set to what my draw length feels good so far. As you see, I have a D-loop, and I've done another video where I did the first impressions on this bow. I'll link that down in the description below and probably throw a card up here on the screen as well. I have this bow right now set to 30.5 inches on the module, and I have it set to 80% let off. Right now, that's getting me about 30 3/4 of draw length, and that feels really good with this bow. I'm in the ballpark of 31 inches. I'm 6'4". I got a pretty big wingspan, but in terms of actually getting the bow set up to the specs that feel right, not every bow is going to be exactly 31 inches for me. Some bows are better at 30.5, like this Vista 35. Some are better at 31.5, 31.25. Just the way this bow has felt for me. I've been shooting it a little bit, and we'll talk more about how I'm doing that later and why I'm doing that later, even though there's nothing on this bow right now. Just finding that first is huge, and having a bow with a rotating cam module makes it super simple. You can do it at home and change it as much as you like. Give it a week or two of practice and then really feel that comfort level. When you anchor, come to full draw, you're not overextended, you're not scrunched in tight. You get the idea. So this part here is just specific to Vista 35 users, but it's a lot of cams are exactly the same way. They have a set screw, either 2 or 3. In this case with the Vista 35, it has 2 that are Torx. I have to take them out from my drawing because I'm on the larger end of the cam and simply rotate this module in and out. Now, if you see the bow in this orientation, if you're working on a bow that has a rotating module or mod-specific cam, so you have to replace the modules, like on Matthews, for example, the closer you move this to you as the archer, the shorter your draw length is going to be. The further you move it away, the longer the draw length is going to be. So if you purchase a bow and you're unsure about what the draw length numbers are and it feels short, you can move it back to lengthen it. And if it feels long, you can move it forward closer to you, the archer, and that would change it. Because a lot of these cams are not specifically numbered. You know, this is 30 inches, this is 29 inches. They either have letters or numbers, and that's true here on this Vista 35. It's just numbered 1, 2, 3, 5, you know, so on and so forth. And so if I just move it forward and backward and get the feel that I need, the feel that I like, that's all I really need to do. I don't have to memorize letters and numbers. Also, since we have a really good shot here of this underside of this cam module, you can see that some of these are longer and some of them are shorter. The longer it is, the closer it's going to come around and come in contact with the string, and the lower your let off is going to be. The shorter the end of the adjustable let off module, the longer your valley is going to be, the longer your draw length is going to be, and the more let off you're going to get. So we have 80, 85, and 90% let off. So now that we have the bow roughly set to our draw length, or at least in my case, I know the draw length, I now can break out my T-square and I can start figuring out knock height or D-loop position. And I like to tie in a soft knot. This is where that T-square comes in really handy, and particularly the Easton one is numbered. So I have the dead center 0, which is the edges, either the bottom or the top edge, depending on how you want to run the T-square. I have an 1/8 of an inch high and a 1/4 of an inch high. Now on this cam system here for this Athens Vista 35, as well as a lot of other bows that are on the market, they're going to have some sort of 2-cam system. This is a binary cam system. You see there are no yokes, nothing that sticks off of the string that goes up to the limbs. Everything is connected to the cam. There are some bows that are a hybrid cam system. They have a yoke at the top and everything's connected to the cam at the bottom. You have a dual yoke system or a dual cam system where both cables split off and come to contact with the limb here and here. The dual yoke system and the hybrid cam system have been around a long time. Same thing true of the binary. The last cam system is a single cam system where the only cam is at the bottom of the bow. It will not be perfectly circular, but at the top it has what's known as the idler wheel, which is a perfectly circular wheel, and it doesn't do anything. A big long string will come around and wrap around it, and you'll have the one yoke up at the top. It looks like a hybrid cam system with the cam being here, all the strings attached here, and then the cam up here, but it's a perfect circle idler wheel. For those bows and those bows only, I like to actually set my D-loop, my knocking position, an 1/8 of an inch high. And let me pull out the T-square and show you what I'm talking about. All right, I'll pull you in nice and close so you see what I'm talking about. So I have 2 burger button holes, which is where your rest mounts in on the back side of the riser here. And you see that they will perpendicular to the string here. Having a bow like this that has 2 burger button holes is really nice. You really get a nice, perfect 90-degree angle to the string, which is what you want. If you have a dual cam system, a hybrid cam system, or a binary cam system of any type, ideally, you want to line up a T-square, snap it onto your string just like that, and you want this bottom edge covering the 2 edges of the burger button hole. So I'll kind of slide this around here so we get a little better light. You see that right now they are exposed, but if I kind of cover it up a little bit by sliding down this T-square, I can line up this bottom edge of the T-square on the bottom edges of the holes there. Now at the camera angle they still look a little bit exposed, but when I then come up here and look at my D-loop position as it currently sits, you see that my 0 mark is right at my soft knot there inside the D-loop. I'll show you how to tie all that later, but this is how I would set up any hybrid cam, binary cam, or dual cam system. If you are running a single cam system, I'm still going to line it up here on the bottom 2 sides of the hole, but I'm going to look instead of inside the D-loop here, I'm actually going to come over to the 1/8 inch mark, and that's where I would tie my soft knot. So you see that it would be up a little bit higher. It doesn't seem like that would make a whole lot of difference, but in reality, that extra 1/8 of an inch can be a huge difference when it comes to lining up a single cam, because in a single cam bow, all the power is coming from the cam at the bottom. The idler wheel up at the top does nothing. It just spins with the rate that the bottom cam spins. So all the power stroke, the extra string pressure is going to come from the bottom, not the top. And if you line it up dead center, like I would with a binary, hybrid, or dual cam system, you'll often get a very knock low tear that you can't get rid of. And the reason being is because it needs to be up at an 1/8. Some guys ride it as high as a 1/4 inch, but really an 1/8 inch will help you alleviate a lot of those tears. So again, snap on my T-square. I don't have to fuss with levels. I don't have to put the bow in any type of vise. I can lay it right down here on the bench, snap this on, and I can move this up and down to find that exact position over the burger button holes, which as you see again is right around in there. And my lining up my marks here, I can see that my 0 line is on my soft knot. What this soft knot does on the inside is gives me some alleviated from knock pressure. Because remember, when this comes back to make the V, it's going to pinch down. It's going to compress on top of my knock. And if my D-loop knots are too close to each other, they will compress the knock and squeeze it, and could possibly give me not a very clean release on the knock, and could actually cause some weird tuning issues. By adding a little bit of soft knot here, some serve material down here, some guys even do a soft knot on the top as well, really open that up, particularly if you're going to shoot a short axle to axle bow. This one is 35 inches axle to axle, so I have a lot of wiggle room. But on a 30-inch bow or a 29, 27-inch bow, having a soft knot both top and bottom is not a half bad idea, and particularly if your draw length's, 28.5 to 29.5. All right, so here we go. I have an imaginary bowstring here with this yellow paracord for high contrast. And you see what I've got here is my T-square. It's not really attached, but you get the idea. Here is the zeroed out mark. And I would usually take on a black bowstring with its center serving, I would usually take a silver Sharpie, but in this case I took a green Expo marker here so you could see it, and I marked that zero line there going down a little bit because I'm going to build my soft knot down towards the bottom cam. So once I've gone ahead and got that marked, I can take my T-square out of the way, and now I'm ready to tie my soft knot. To tie my soft knot, I'm going to use BCY 3D inserting. In this case, I'm going to use green because it's high contrast, and I have a really long piece here. It's always better to work a little bit more material than you actually need, and I have it folded over itself here, so that way I have this nice loop at one end, just the loose tag ends at the other. I'm going to go ahead on the back side of the bowstring and open up this loop. I'm going to feed the legs through, just like that, so that way it's going to cinch down on top of the bowstring just like that. Slide it up to the top part of my mark. Remember, the bottom cam is down here to the left. And now I can start making half hitches. So I can cinch this up, loop it over itself here, and I'm just going to start tying overhand half hitches on the bottom side. Kind of building this from top to bottom. And predominantly I do about 3 or 4 of these. Just like so. And just cinch it up into itself. All right, and it's going to slide a little bit on this paracord, but that's okay. So now I can take a lighter, and always working on the top side of the bowstring because heat always goes up. You never want to light underneath the string. I can go ahead and I can knight this, melt the tag ends down in, let that cool for a second, and then I can just press it down into itself. And then I have a soft knot. So now, when it grips onto center serving, that knot won't slide. And if I ever have to cut up my D-loop, I always have this center point here, this knocking point, this soft knot. So that way, if I need to replace that D-loop, I know exactly where I need to put it. We're now ready to go ahead and tie our D-loop. Again, BCY makes really good D-loop material, several different thicknesses. I have a really long piece of green 550 paracord here for contrast. And again, it is doubled over just like we did with the 3D inserting to make our soft knot. Same deal here. I'm going to take it on the bottom side. We're going to build the bottom knot first. Open up this loop, feed my legs through. And again, this piece is comically long, but you're going to get the idea. This is going to be the bottom knot of our D-loop material. And since I have the legs really long here, I'm just going to kind of pull this one through to kind of dress up this knot, make it look a little pretty. It's okay if you leave it a little long and then cut it and burn it later. Now, some people, if you go on forums, will debate, which way the knot should be. Should the top knot be facing you, the bottom knot be facing you as the archer, so on and so forth. One knot's going to face this way, the other knot's going to face towards us. I've shot them both ways for a number of years, and I've never seen an appreciable difference. I really don't think 99% of archers could really tell a difference, but basically you do want them going in different directions, so that way if you do twist your D-loop, one will give, as it should, and also then it doesn't want to walk its way around the string. If you tie both knots on the same side, they'll both work their way around the string, and your D-loop will always be twisted. So now here I have the other leg, the long leg here, and I'm going to start on the back side of the string. So I built this knot going that way. I'm going to start here on the back side of the string. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my long leg over, and I'm going to go through. Now this obviously would be the D-loop here. It would not be this large, but this for camera purposes, you get the idea. And I'm going to go back into that hole. All right, so I've now come across myself. Now I'm going to take this tag in, go behind, right? So you can kind of see what we're doing here. I'm going to go behind it and then come in front of the string. All right, so now I've gone behind the string, up and around, back through the hole, and now I'm in front of the string again. Go behind the string. So now this is where we sit. And I'm going to go through this hole that I just created right here. Now you can probably see it starting to take shape. Here's my second D-loop knot. We'll dress it up here so it looks a little prettier. And now we have our finished D-loop. So our arrow would get knocked in here above the soft knot. Of course, I would clip this. I would burn it to make a nice melted ball. And then I could take a pair of pliers. If you don't own D-loop pliers, I could put them through here, open them up, and that would really cinch down the knots on my D-loop. If you do have D-loop pliers, it makes it really simple because they will compress down on the bottom. Obviously, I'm not going to do it with this paracord. It's way too fat. But it would go in there and it would actually come in and it would lift up and it would open that D-loop, really tighten it up, and really solidify your knots. So now that your D-loop is installed, you're ready to get your rest on and start shooting your bow. And I know you're saying, Nate, we don't have a sight on here. We haven't tuned anything. I know that. But there's a couple reasons why I like to just get my rest on here. Doesn't matter what rest it is. Quite often, I don't shoot with a whisker biscuit, but I keep one on hand so that I can just bolt that right on. I don't have any timing cords or anything to mess with a Hamskea or a QAD drop away. And I can just start putting arrows through the bow. Mostly every manufacturer of a bowstring is going to tell you do 40, 50, up to 100 shots just to kind of settle in the strings, get that preliminary stretch out. They do stretch them all from the factory. This Athens Vista 35 comes with gas high octane bowstrings, so that's a really high quality string. But just because they stretch them at the factory doesn't mean that they're going to settle on the bow camp. Remember, there's a lot of serving here. It's very tight. It's very stiff. If you've never installed bowstrings before fresh out of the package, there's a lot of working in that they have to do, and that can stretch things out, move cam timing around if it's not a really high quality built string, so on and so forth. But also it allows you to start feeling out that draw length. And I recommend 40 to 50 shots at a minimum at that draw length. You can sit 8-10 feet from your target, just pound arrows. They don't all have to be the same, doesn't matter. At this point, you're just settling in the strings, making sure everything is feeling right, and really playing with that draw length and let off if you have that ability on your bow. So I've already done that with this bow. Everything's settled in, cam timing is still perfect, everything feels exactly the way I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and install my Hamskea Hybrid Hunter and get that all timed up here on the bow, and we'll talk through setting up a limb-driven rest while I'm at it. If you're unfamiliar with what a limb-driven rest is, it's actually a very simple concept. The prong of the rest for the drop away is always up, and when the limb is down at brace, it pulls that launcher down, and when the bow is drawn and the limb flexes in towards the archer, it brings that launcher up and picks up your arrow with the whale tail or the lizard tongue. And since that's down and up, you want to time that on your bow a little bit, and every bow is a little bit different, although I kind of have some good vanilla places to put the cord onto your limb, so that way you can get a good tune and a nice, simple, easy fix with your rest. First things first, we're just going to go ahead and take the bolt and install it here onto the riser. Now, like I said, this bow does have 2 burger button holes, and if you have the ability to mount through both holes, it really gives a nice firm 90-degree angle into the riser and really makes tuning nice and simple. Most whisker biscuits and QADs do have a long enough arm. The way this Hamskea is built, it's actually not quite a perfect fit to fit 2 bolts in here. So I'm just going to go in the back hole here, and all I'm going to do is just kind of get this finger tight, and then I'm going to attach the limb cord down at the bottom. So nearly every bow these days is a pass parallel bow system, meaning the limbs are flexing in pass parallel to each other. So the top limb and the bottom limb actually point in directly to each other. They're not 180 degrees parallel to each other. And because of that, putting a rest cord out towards the limb tip means that it's going to pick up immediately and it's going to drop it late. And with a drop away rest, if you're not used to using something like this, a limb driven system like with the Hamskea, it can cause some tuning deficiencies if you're not perfect in your form. So to give you a little bit of mercy, it's nicer to move it back away, and so it flexes a little bit later in the draw cycle and drops it a little bit sooner on the shot. So what I like to do predominantly for this Athens is a great limb deflection. I'd say it's probably in the neighborhood about 6 to 8 degrees past parallel, which means that 2.5 inches is a really great place to start. You don't need to stick the whole pad of whatever manufacturer you are using. You can just use a little sliver like I've done here, and then you can take other little slivers and put them on other different bows, or tear this one off and when that adhesive is bad, put other ones on, so on and so forth. So again, about 2.5 inches to center, and then I still get another 1/8 inch of play either way to really fine tune if I have to. So I have that set up to 2.5 inches. I'm going to take my rest cord here off my Hamskea and bring it down. What I do is I like to tie a cinching knot, so a knot that comes down and cinches on top of itself. Flip the camera angle so you get a little bit better view. So I've got it wrapped around the limb here, and I'm going to head and tie a Uni Knot, which is a fisherman style knot, and it's a very simple knot, and it really tightens down on top of itself. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tag in, I'm going to come down across my main line right here, and I'm going to just pass it over. You can do it once, twice, or 3 times, depending on what you want to do. I usually just do it once, or in this case I'll do it twice, back in through itself just like this. I'll take a pair of pliers to grab this tag in, really cinch that up. Leave a little bit of a tag in there, 1/4 inch, up to 3/8 of an inch there. Give you a little bit of mercy. And then this will come down. Got this lined up in the center of my hole. This will come down and it will cinch on top of itself, just like that. Put it on the outside of the limb, just like so. And every time this pulls, it's just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. It's not like overhand knots and stuff that can come loose. This is always going to be permanently there. This nice little tag in here again. Grab with a pair of pliers, just give it a little cinch, and you're ready to go here on your bottom limb. Some rests also allow you to mount to the top limb if you want to do that instead. I like it running down to the bottom. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. Coming back up to the top, this is loose up here. We just had it finger tight. I do run this Prusik style knot on all of my limb-driven dropaways, and we won't tighten that up. If you're interested in doing this instead of a football clamp or something else, do follow the link in the description below, or I'll throw a card somewhere up here that you can go to that. Solidifying where this is at is basically a matter of kind of lining it up here with the riser cutouts and making it nice and square. We'll tighten it up a little bit. And the hamskis are really nice. This washer allows this bolt to turn a little bit more independently of the rest. I'm just going to kind of grab it here a little bit. Really kind of crank it down. Not too much yet. I don't want it to move too far on me. I don't like using set screws. I think they mar up your riser a little bit too much. So I'm not going to put a set screw in here. But what you want to do is kind of get this set, then install your set screw, and then reef this down the rest of the way, which is what I'm going to do now. I don't see it moved on you a little bit. That's okay. Bring it back. Kind of pull down and tighten at the same time. And now that rest is definitely installed. We can go ahead and grab our Prusik. Pull this down. And you see down in here that my launcher now with the bow at brace is down. And when the limb flexes up and in, this lizard tail will come up and will grab the arrow in order to make the shot. No matter what type of rest that you're installing that's a drop away, you will have a little bit of slack here. Even with the spring system on this hamski or the rebound dampener on the new ones, you will get a little bit of slack as this shoots in a little bit. You'll have to tighten up your knots or your football clamp. That's totally normal. So now with the D-loop set and the rest installed, we can now actually go and install the sight. And the reason why we're going to do this is we need the sight in order to figure out our peep height. Now peep height is very user specific, it's very anchor specific, and what you intend to do with your sight. So what I'm going to show you today, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to figuring out exactly kind of where it should be, and that's really going to help your peep height later. Most bows today do come with multiple sight hole options, and I like to be in the lower portion or in the mid-lower portion because most people that are setting up a hunting bow in particular are going to be shooting a heavier style of arrow. You know, 3D arrows are usually in the low 400s to 300s in the grain weight, and so you can get away with having it higher up the riser so you can get more adjustment out of the gang adjustment of your sight housing. But for most people that are shooting fixed pins or an Easy V style sight, it's going to be in one location and it's not going to move. So I'm going to put this in the lower sight position here, and I'm also going to kind of ballpark the distance away from the riser. If your bow has if your sight rather has a dovetail system and it can move in and out, you'll have to play with that later. The CBE tactic has a little bit of adjustment, but not a whole lot. I'm just going to go right in the middle holes. Always kind of get both bolts installed. No matter what rest you're using, always install both bolts a little bit here. Do not reef them both down until they're both kind of seated, like I'm doing right now. And now if they're both in there, I can kind of give them a good shot here just to get them down. Now at this point it might seem a little bit odd and a little bit tedious, but I strongly recommend that you now shoot this peepless. Now just bear with me, here's the reason why. Figuring out your peep height is very important when it comes to where your sight housing is going to be located in its vertical axis. So for example, if you're a guy like me out here in the Northeast hunting whitetails, very known, specific shorter distances, nothing more than 40 yards, and particularly if you're shooting fixed pins like this and the pins are not going to be moving, you want to really hammer home kind of like your 20 to 25 mark, because where that is with your sight housing is where your peep is going to be on your string. If you're out west, or if you're a 3D shooter shooting in an open class and you can shoot out to 50 yards, or if you want to do a tack event which is way out to 100 yards, you want to actually have your peep be in a little bit of a different location, and you actually don't want to zero your peep height based on your sight at 20 yards, but you rather want to zero your peep where it could be closer to 40, maybe even 50 yards, depending on the distances that you're going to be shooting. Because the closer you are at 20, 25, 30, you can kind of fudge your anchor point a little bit to get into your peep to make that shorter shot happen. But the further out that target, the more micro your adjustments, the further the point of impact can be on the target down range. So I'm going to set this up like I'm going to shoot it at 20 yards. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to sight this bow in. I'm going to draw this bow back, anchor the way I've been comfortable because I've shot this bow in and I've really been comfortable with the draw length. Find the anchor position, either if I'm going to shoot a handheld style release or I'm setting this bow up to shoot it with an index style release. And I'm actually just going to look past the string to my sight housing, and I'm going to kind of start at real close distances, like 10, 12 feet, work my way back and kind of find the ballpark with the gang adjustments up and down, left and right to get to 20 yards. Then once that's figured out, which I have figured out already with this bow, I can now install my peep height based on where this sight is located. All right, so go ahead and grab an arrow. Does not matter what arrow it is. You just never want to draw a bow back without an arrow in it. In case your D-loop fails or some other terrible thing could happen, you don't want to dry fire your bow. When you're in the shop, a lot of the time, the guys will move a peep up and down the string and say, does that look good? Does that look good? But when you're in your own shop and doing this yourself, having a high contrast color rubber band like this blue one here really makes this simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this bow, and I'm looking for this when I go ahead and line up my anchor point for this rubber band to start blocking my sight housing, and that's going to be where I'm going to start my peep location when I need to press the bow to put the peep into the string. So this is going to look a little funky here because we're in the basement here and I'm really stinking tall and this bow is really long, but I'm going to go ahead and draw this bow. I'm going to come back to anchor here, and I can see already this peep is almost perfect. Might be just a touch high. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it down, adjust my glasses a little bit because I'm getting the nose piece there in my visual plane. What I'm going to do now is, because it's pretty close, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close, come to full draw, make sure everything's all right, then close my eyes and find my anchor point, and I'm going to open my right eyeball and see what I'm looking at here. Okay, so I don't want to fudge it. Come to full draw, close my eyes, kind of find my anchor spot, now open my right eye. Yeah, it's just off a touch, but it's pretty daggum close. Maybe just a fuzz low. And the nice thing with rubber bands is since they have friction, I can just kind of nudge this up about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch here. And again, you can move the peep up and down later, up to about 1/4 of an inch before you start kind of getting out of spec a little bit. Again, just make sure this arrow is seated, reset my release. Come to full draw, close my eyes, find my anchor, which is my thumb coming up underneath my jaw here, my fingers out, touching the nose and the string, and that is great. That blue is blocking almost all of the sight housing. That is perfect. So now what I can do is I can take my Sharpie or the Expo marker that I was using earlier, mark below and above this rubber band, and then I have a place to install my peep. All right, so I stepped over to the press there, put in a peep. This is a Pine Ridge Z38, which is my personal favorite peep. Very economical choice, tough as nails, built right here in the USA, the whole kit and caboodle. Now, peep size, 1/8, 3/16, 1/4, 5/16, whatever, that is a little bit dependent. It's a different video for a different time. But basically, matching up the sight ring on your sight housing based on your peep, your draw length, how far the peep sits from your eye, so on and so forth. There are a lot of different factors. I have other videos on choosing a peep size. Again, I will link those, throw a card, so on and so forth. Right now, I'm running a 1/8 inch style peep because I have a pretty long draw length, and that sight housing gets really far away and it gets really small to my eye, although I might need to run a 3/16. I would say the lion's share of shooters shooting a standard style sight, anything up to about 1 inch and 5/8, will run a 3/16 peep just fine. But remember, peep size looks a lot different indoors in this lighting than it does outdoors. Indoors it looks a little bit bigger, a little bit fuzzier, and outside it gets really crystal clear in that bright sunny day, and it gets smaller in size looking. So if it looks tight here, it's going to get even tighter outdoors. If it looks a little bit big in here, it might be perfect outside. But either way, what we're really doing here is we're coming back, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come to full draw, close our eyes, open up that right eye, and see if that peep ring is lining up with my sight housing. Make sure I don't draw and hit anything. Come to full draw here. Line everything up. Feel comfortable. And it is, that looks good. It also looks a little small. So we're going to probably have to run a 3/16 peep. But that's okay. Let's do it again. All right, again, come to full draw. Come to anchor. Open up the eye. Oh yeah, it's right there. It is right there. Now, I'm not going to tie this peep in fully yet. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is I am going to tie around it. Again, different video for a different time. I'm going to tie around it and I'm going to shoot this bow with the peep installed just like that. I'm not going to tie above and below. I'm just going to install it as it is right now because I might need to have some wiggle room later. And again, it looks like I'm going to need to go to a larger style peep anyway. Now the last step, and perhaps the most fickle, is finding the balance for this bow with the stabilization. So this bow, the Vista 35, is very balanced right out of the box. However, now I've added a sight and I've added a rest, and it's starting to tilt. There it goes. It's starting to tilt a little bit towards the heavier side of the bow. Now these aren't super heavy. The Hamskea Trinity is a lot heavier, and if I had like a big dovetail or a spot hog or the CBE Engage Hybrid 3 pin that I shoot, or other style sights that are really big and beefy up here, it's really going to take off to that side. Now mostly everybody will run a stabilizer out of the front, which I'm going to go ahead and install right now. And if you want to shoot your bow with a wrist sling, I personally don't, but if you like to shoot a bow with a wrist sling, now is the time to install it as well. Now install it again in pieces. So this is just a front bar. I have 1 ounce out the front, nothing fancy, nothing outlandish, just to kind of feel the weight. Now that alone, as you can probably see here, has already drastically helped out the balance of this bow. That is an 11-inch CBE Torx. It comes with the front bar and back bar, and probably the most robust knuckle for the price point. This whole set is like $150 and is the best mass manufactured stabilizer system, in my personal opinion, for the working man that's on the market. Already that feels like I could shoot this bow. I mean, I have an open hand right there. Shoot this bow with just that front stabilizer. And so to confirm that, I'm going to shoot with just this front bar, and I'm going to shoot and shoot with just this front bar. And if I feel like I need that extra offset back balance, which not everybody does, again, depends on your sight and your rest weight, and also if you want to shoot with the quiver on. If you want to shoot with the quiver on, you're going to have to run a sidebar. Almost guaranteed. That's a lot of weight that sticks out away from the bow. I don't care how tight your quiver is. Those arrows in that quiver are going to offset a lot more weight than what you want to deal with your grip. So I'm going to take this bow exactly as it is, and I'm going to shoot it for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and really get the feel for this bow. That actually feels really good. I think I could really manage with that, but I just don't know. So again, this is all trial and error. You're setting this up by yourself. You have the time. So set it up right the first time instead of hurriedly rushing it through at the local shop for an hour or two. They don't have the time to sit down and mess with all those stabilizations, and they just don't have enough time, literally, to do that, because you should be doing this over several days, if not weeks. So now you're down to the final tweaking stages, like I just said. You're figuring out that finite little micro tune with the peep system. Maybe you just have to adjust your anchor point a little bit more, and this does need to get moved. Maybe you do need to run a sidebar. Maybe you don't even like a front stabilizer, period. Now is the time to do all of that before you even pull out a paper stand or start bare shaft tuning or anything wild and crazy like that. You will pull your hair out if you start changing and having many different experimental variables, if you will. Sorry, we're going to go back to middle school science here. Change all those experimental variables. Now you don't know what your control is. You want something to be your control. This is my control bow for now. I'm going to shoot this bow exactly it is. I'm not going to try to tune anything. I'm going to make sure that I'm comfortable, repeatable, and consistent, because then if I feel that this is the tune for me, this is the setup for me, and I go to shoot through paper and I get really good tears and easy bullet holes and so on and so forth, I'm not going to mess with it. Just because it looks cool that I put a back bar on here, just because it has the backside holes, just because I feel like the sight needs to move in and out, doesn't mean that's where it's going to work the best for you, how you grip the bow, how you shoot the bow, how you anchor, so on and so forth. But anyways, I don't know about you, I'm tired of talking because I want to get to shooting. But if I left you with any questions about setting up a bow from scratch at home, whether or not you have a bow press, please do follow the links in the description below. Hit me up on Facebook and Instagram, Average Jack Archery, or send me an email, averagejackarchery@gmail.com, or drop a comment down here on YouTube with your questions, or if you have any other tuning and figuring out your bow tips, please leave them down there for everybody to enjoy. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.